Welcome to Dad Hammer, Bolters and Booze, where we discuss all things Warhammer while staying hydrated with an adult beverage. I am David the Warboss, and I'm joined as always by the most generic space marine in the Imperium, Mr. Medicae Steve. Steve, how we doing?
Doing good. Very excited to be back and doing another show. On vacation, so I have some R&R time. That's always exciting.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, looking forward to not getting up and going to work.
Ah, yeah, and we got the holiday weekend here in the
Mm-hmm.
States. We've got Labor Day on Monday, so I always like to not know that there's a holiday going into the weekend.
Yeah, huh?
It's and I've always had this problem, even though now I'm much older. But even when I was in my 20s, I'd come into work and somebody would say, "Yeah, we got a long weekend." I'm like, what are you talking about? Like it'd be on Friday. They said, we have a holiday on Monday." What?
Yes.
It's like a little Christmas present. It was so
Oh
great.
boy.
I mean, this time not so much because I knew going into it because we've got we always got plans and stuff happening, but it's always nice to not know that
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to work on a day.
It's
To
like
me,
it's like putting a coat on in the winter for the first time since the summer, and you found like a $20 bill in there. It's kind of similar to that.
very similar. Well, I'm going to wake up on Monday and expect to find $20 in my coat.
You never know. It
I
may
know
happen.
it's the Labor Day ferry. It's going to go to my house and drop some cash in my coat pocket.
About
That
time.
that needs to be a thing,
Oh,
right?
I think we should start that thing right
I
now.
believe.
Right
I
now.
believe. Labor Day ferry. What a terrible idea. That's probably one of our many terrible ideas on this
Man,
show.
I think this could go somewhere.
Okay. I appreciate your optimism.
Hmm.
Well, looking forward to a day off, but right now, let's talk about some Warhammer stuff. We've got a great show for you. We have a ton of news coming out of the recent Nova Open, which was the most recent Warhammer Games Workshop tournament type deal. But more importantly, at least for us anyway, they showed off a whole bunch of new stuff. So lots of new announcements, models, all kinds of things. So we'll talk about whether or not it was what we had hoped for. We had made some predictions and we've been talking about what we're hoping to see. Did we get to see any of that? What are our thoughts? They showed off Space Marines, Iron Jawz for Age of Sigmar, new Warcry, Horus Heresy, Old World stuff, and then a Primarch Fulgrim model as well. So lots to talk about. We're going to get into all of it. Thank you so much for listening to our show. If you like what you're hearing, make sure to rate, follow, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And you can always find us on our website, dadhammerpodcast.com, where we post articles, reviews, opinions, pictures, and most importantly, our cocktail recipes, which I would say 90% of them are really, really good. Every
Yeah.
now and then you have a stinker, but most of the time I would say that we do a pretty good job of vetting them out and sampling, trying before we post them.
Yeah.
Multiple samples. One of the perks.
Vetting them.
Exactly. So speaking of which, before we start getting into any of the real news, we're going to start with the most important part of every Dad Hammer podcast, and that is, what are we drinking? Steve, I am going to go first
You got the lame-o
because
today?
okay, it's not lame.
Okay, good.
It's safe, right?
Fair. All right.
It's secure, and I am one of those that is very excited about fall weather. I like fall. I like pumpkin spice. I like leaves turning colors. All the things that are fall related. And I have an Oktoberfest here.
Hey.
Yeah, it's just not a crazy different October. It's just this traditional Sam Adams Oktoberfest. And every time I drink one, I'm always like, this was a good choice. And
It really is.
yeah, it's not a complicated beer or anything that I normally drink something really hoppy with a lot of different fruit notes and hazy IPA and blah
Mm-hmm.
blah blah blah. This is pretty straightforward, but it's as the bottle says, hearty and smooth, and just like me, hearty and smooth.
I get
Emphasis
it.
on the smooth.
Uh, yes, smooth like
Okay.
you. Who?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, that's what I'm drinking. Safe, secure, US. Let's go. I'm feeling good about it. But Steve, you've got a very, and I'm just looking at the recipe. This looks complicated, but looks like lots of prep. But I'm going to let you go through this.
Yeah, this one wasn't quite so safe. This was a little bit out of my usual comfort zone. Um, it's the original drink is called a whiskey tea. I decided to call it the Commissar
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like it would be something that a Commissar sitting in a bunker, kicking back, waiting to shoot a deserter or something like that would be drinking.
Just casually.
Just
Just
casually,
casually.
like
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for someone to desert. Can't wait.
Yep.
And getting back to your Oktoberfest, getting into closer to fall weather and all, I thought, well, I'm usually a I like my tea in the harbor kind of guy. I'm more of a coffee
Mm-hmm.
dude, but I can handle a good tea these days. I found some nice loose leaf tea that we've been trying at home, and this one actually worked out pretty well because it's kind of spicy. It's got some odd flavors in it. But to not bore everybody, you take a cup of boiling water and whatever tea you want. So you make a hot tea of your choice. Then you take 1.5 ounces of Irish whiskey. I used some single barrel Jack Daniels because that's what I had. A tablespoon of milk and a tablespoon of white sugar, and just drink it warm. And I'm not gonna lie, I am very, very, very happy I stumbled on this one. Um, this will be this will definitely be my cold weather sitting by the fire in the evening,
Yeah.
sipping on this. This is great, man. It's
This
very, very
Yeah,
relaxing.
it's the warm cocktail. It's not something that I do very often, but I've had them. Usually, I don't think I've ever made one myself.
Yeah.
I've always gone to maybe some kind of very fancy schmancy restaurant or a team building event or something where they're serving cocktails. And I've had a
Hmm.
hot cocktail before, and I'm trying to remember. I think it was closer to Christmas time with some cinnamon sticks and that kind of
Okay.
thing in it, and that was really good. But I haven't made one, so this looks like something that, although really the only I said it's complicated, the only thing you got to do is boil water,
Yeah.
which is
Make
not
hot
not
tea.
really that. Yeah, I mean, but it's got more than like three bullets
Yeah, that's
in
right.
the list, so that equals complication
Hmm.
from my simple
No
mind.
ice.
Yeah, whoa, getting crazy now.
Yeah, yeah. I know, man.
Well, that looks like something I'm going to try, and I'm glad that you're enjoying yours. I will enjoy my Oktoberfest. Cheers and bottoms up, Steve.
Cheers, sir.
All right, let's get right into the Nova Open reveals. And there's a lot to go over here. We've got a lot of content, but I wanted to first start with just a general take. And I mean, I always hate to come into these events and to treat them like, like the hordes of the internet and
Hmm.
watching, sometimes I'll watch the Twitch stream and I see the chat window and everybody's just railing on the host and saying, why aren't you showing off this army? Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? Those models look terrible. And I just mute all of that. I don't want to see that kind of
Mm-mm.
stuff. That said, um, my expectations were a little higher because coming off a 10th edition and the new releases, I thought, well, maybe we're going to see a little bit. I was really hoping for a Votan release of some kind, but I don't know, man. Steve, I was a little underwhelmed, I guess.
Yeah, I was too. And I may have just put my, I don't know, hopes a little too high,
Hmm.
if that's a possibility.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I was hoping for something other than what I knew in the back of my head was coming. We knew that the Space Marines codex was going to be first,
Hmm.
etc. Um, yeah, but it was still good. Please don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I still enjoy what is out there and what we're going to talk about, but man, I was really hoping for something off the mark. I was actually kind of hoping for what we talked about last time. I wanted to actually see some terrain come out because we've not done that yet. We know there's new models coming, and we know there's new stuff like that coming, but like that would be a great thing to see.
I'm with you.
Just move along and do something a little different. It felt safe. It felt like they sat in a board meeting and like, okay, what's the most positive thing and most kind of vanilla thing that we can do, and other than being vanilla, not be too terribly controversial. And
Yeah,
kind of hit the marketing marks. You know what I mean?
yeah, and I liken this to the video game industry
Mhm.
where you think about a company like Nintendo where they've got their big franchises, Donkey Kong, Mario,
Mhm.
Zelda, Pokemon. I guess Pokemon's not really a Nintendo franchise per se, but you get the idea. Like
Yeah,
they've got
sure.
their heavy hitters. They're not going to come out with the brand new console, the brand new Mario game, and then also release five other key franchise games all at the same time. You got to spread it out,
Mhm.
and you got to hold your aces, when not to go overly into the poker, when the chips are down, right, and all
Right,
that kind
right,
of
right.
stuff. But if things need a pick me up, you release your big stuff, and maybe after coming off the 10th edition, the profits are really really high. Everything Games Workshop and Warhammer is on the up and up. Regardless of what the internet hordes say, I think 10th
Mhm.
edition has been a rousing success for them, especially with Combat Patrol reaching a new audience, all that kind of stuff. So, maybe it's okay. It's okay to play it safe. Not that they care necessarily what we
Yeah,
think, but maybe now is a okay time to play it safe with some releases that are not going to hit home runs with anyone, but be
yeah.
more like, okay, thanks for more Warhammer.
Well, and they probably had. And this is I'm just guessing and speculating, but they probably had so much tooling put put up and so much infrastructure geared toward getting that 10th edition box out that it takes time to kind of reverse stream a little bit and
Hmm.
reset for the new stuff. And, moving forward, I'm sure they want to make sure that, well, let's hope they want to make sure that what happened at the end of ninth, things selling out and people not being able to get those really rapid fire releases that they were putting out. Cool stuff, but it was only cool if you could get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And you
definitely
don't
don't
want to
want that
like
again.
no, you don't want to slow production because you're just still reeling from an enormous output of one particular thing, and kind of having to step it back a little bit. So, I mean, that may be a product of all that too. I'm just guessing, just trying to keep a positive note on it.
Yeah, and at the same time, the fact that they have an event a big reveal at least, I want to say once a month, maybe
It's
once
felt
every
that
two
way.
months.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's
Hmm.
frequent. They don't let up. There's always a big reveal, something to talk about, some new product. It's a lot. They release a whole lot of products.
And they're still a
And
small company in
yeah,
comparison to other things.
yeah, for sure. So I think what we're getting at here is that we get used to the big mic drop type reveals, and they'll do those sometimes one after the other, and they'll have a really awesome reveal or preview event, and then we expect that every single time, and maybe that's just not realistic. It's not
Hmm.
reasonable for us to be
Yeah.
able to expect that, but that's okay. I mean, I'm always happy to talk about new stuff
Oh
coming out,
yeah.
so let's get into that. Let's start first with the Space Marines, and I for me, Space Marines are rarely jaw dropping.
Hmm.
They never come out like because when the Tyranids came out and they released these weird, crazy looking bugs that
Yeah.
multiple appendages and crazy teeth and all kinds of stuff, just makes you say wow when you
Hmm.
see them. Space Marines are more like okay, thanks for more Space Marines, but
Yeah.
some people are real. Obviously, Space Marines are extremely popular. I think that's
Hmm.
their most popular faction and army. So it makes sense for them to release a metric ton of models. So we've got some new ones, but starting first with the first reveal of the codex. We already knew that. We saw the schedule
Hmm.
for the upcoming releases, but it was cool. I thought to see what the codex was going to look like, not just for Space Marines, but for other factions as well. And we didn't get to see a deep dive, but we got to see a lot of detachment type stuff. So, um, Steve, is there anything in particular that you were excited about with the detachments and the codex specifically?
Well, I didn't. I'll be honest with you. I didn't dig too deep into what they released as far as the specific detachments
Well,
because
it's
I
all
felt
intro. It's all intro stuff right now.
yeah, it was kind of like, well, this sounds good. It
Yeah.
sounds like they're going to give you. It was very very hopeful, right? Because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if this codex is like this, I'm going to go ahead and assume that the rest of them are going to be very similar. So what I liked about the Space Marines, it looks like you're going to get to have some close combat type detachments. You're going to have
Mm-hmm.
some sort of speed freak type detachments, fast strike, that kind of stuff. Armor or just heavy, heavy shooters. And so it's going to be really, really kind of cool because one thing I read about it was so being a Dark Angels player, they're considered a divergent chapter, right? And I guess Space Wolves would too, to go toward your Space Marine army.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't really fall into this codex necessarily, but what they did with this edition, they made it very easy and and not so kind of ick feeling to play one of these divergent chapters with these kind of detachments that are in the regular Space Marine Codex.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I watched a lot of the tournament kind of stuff, just curious and just to see what's happening. Because Dark Angels has been rated pretty high, but Dark Angels being played with the Gladius detachment that is just the plain Jane Space Marines is
Right.
actually doing better than the Dark Angels with their own chapter specific detachment. So that's kind of fun because now you can I always wanted to kind of check out Blood Angels, but I don't really want to paint them all. So why don't I look at a close combat type detachment in this codex? And you could do that. And I don't know. It's gonna be kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm still a little unsure how they're gonna do all of the factions because
Right.
I bought or the chapters rather. I bought a bunch of Space Wolves. I bought the Combat Patrol box,
Mm-hmm.
added some more stuff. I've got enough for almost a 2,000 point army of Space Wolves, and because they're leaning so much into these detachments, and I'm looking at some of the text here. They talk about the styles and the detachments and six of these styles, it says, six of these styles bear a distinct resemblance to the favored doctrines of specific first founding chapters, Ultramarines, Imperial Fists, Iron Hands, etc., etc. But
Mm-hmm.
importantly, you are not limited by chapter. An army can load up on Outriders and unleash a lightning assault with the Stormlands task force. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to paint them white.
Right.
So I guess that's all well and good. I love the flexibility. I love because with Space Wolves, you're really kind of narrowed into a combat heavy type chapter.
Mm-hmm.
But even though I'm thinking, because I bought some the snipers, right? I've got
Right.
some. Um, I've also got some of the turret guns, So I
Uh-huh.
like to mix and match, but I didn't want Ultramarines. I liked the Space Wolves lore, but I also wanted to have some range. But really, if I was trying to play in a tournament or be really competitive, I'm not getting any of the benefits from in previous codex and
Mm-hmm.
ninth edition releases. I wasn't going to get any of the benefits because all the benefits were around close combat. So I wonder. I'm interested to see in the future codex whether, as a chapter specific player that I am I going to still be able to have some, and I can make up my own scenarios with lore and reading through that.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be in the codex, I'm sure. But do I get any special goodies for being a Space Wolves player? That's what I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, and I'm not really seeing that with the Dark Angel stuff either. So right now, if I wanted to play a lot of my Raven Wing stuff, this Stormlance task force will be better than what I have.
Mm-hmm.
Because just the one detachment that's with the Dark Angel stuff right now is you might as I'm not saying you might as well not bring Raven Wing, but they don't really get the special stuff that makes them fun to play. So maybe this one in the Space Marines Codex, perhaps that will. Um, and I'm assuming that some of these others will fit in some direction like that as well. You know.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're going to try. I think some people will be disappointed that they don't have
Hmm.
special rules for their chapter, and I can understand that. But
Yeah.
I also, as someone who likes the direction that 10th is going in the simplicity realm, I don't mind it so much.
Right.
And just looking kind of to wrap up on the codex part, again, our friend, the collector's edition, the codex, with a little bit of an eye roll. Looking at it says a luxurious collector's edition featuring unique cover art, gold page edges, and silver blocking. I mean, I'm all about the collector's edition. That's really cool,
Hmm.
but it's an extra $30, and the only thing they did is alter the front of the book. Like, give me a cool fold out map, or
Yeah.
even give me a set of stickers or something to put on my lunchbox as a kid.
Yeah.
Give me something, and that's just like the $30 is to me is a little heavy for slightly different printing.
Yeah, considering that, in reality, this codex, I mean, how many pages are these detachment rules? So say
Mm-hmm.
three pages, and then, if you have 7 detachment, you're talking somewhere between 20 and 30 pages of the codex are actually going to be rules for
Usable, yeah,
reusable. So, I
yeah.
mean, yeah, I'm with you, man.
And then at the end, I noticed this too. It says the release will be accompanied by a deck of new look data cards containing all the rules. So, I mean, these are going to be updated data cards. So the people that just bought them, not even 2 months ago, I
Right,
think.
right.
Oh my gosh! I mean, I didn't buy them, even though they're cheap,
Mm-mm.
relatively speaking. I didn't buy them thinking they're going to update these things. There's no way that I need to buy these, even though they look really awesome. And
Uh-huh.
now you have to go buy them again. I don't know. I feel like that's just a little hard to swallow. But maybe that's why they made them so cheap, because they knew
Agreed.
they were going to do it 2 months later.
Ah, man, that's gonna hurt some feelings.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's cool to see, not to just be negative. It's cool to see
Mhm.
the first codex, and it's good that it's Space Marines. That's the way it's always been. Excited to see new rules, but more importantly, let's talk about the new models
Yeah,
that were released. They showed off Terminators, which came in the Leviathan box, but Terminators separately. Chaplain and Terminator armor, which we'll talk about. Stern Guard and Company Heroes, the Jump Pack Marines, and then new Scouts. So, out of all of those, Steve, which one caught your eye the most?
oh man, that chaplain and Terminator armor. I've got so many little Dark Angel bits and stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
could really Dark Angel that guy up. And I like
Yep.
chaplains. I don't really know how to play them very well, but I just like them. I like their whole lore. I like the look. I just think they're really cool. So I
Angels
have
of Death really
yeah.
really does it. Angels of Death really does it up in the Warhammer TV show. I
Hmm.
just I thought the chaplains were okay. I like the skull face. That's
Yeah.
cool. But then in the actual show, I that it ratcheted up the likability, I think,
Yeah.
for the chaplains for me.
I think I watched that fan made Hell's Reach YouTube
Mhm.
video and I read the
Yep.
book, and that's what got me. Because they're the zealots of the Space Marines. You know what I mean? They're full on angry. But you would think with a name like Chaplain, they'd be like the
It'd be nice.
spiritually. No, 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 no. They are to focus the anger and the contempt and all that stuff into the point of a weapon.
Yeah.
And I think that's a weird spin on what we normally see, especially in Western society, of the word chaplain. You think of
Right.
a very benign individual, and these dudes are nowhere near benign.
No, but they come with because there's obviously no religion, especially within the Space
Hmm.
Marines. The chaplain role with the Space Marine is more of a wisdom figure to
Right.
me. They're trying to keep everything nice and level, and hey, let's make sure we stick to the rules, guys, and
Yeah.
don't forget your honor and courage and all those things, and giving
Mhm.
the battle cries, but in a nice liturgical type tone. Like, hey,
Exactly.
let's just let's murder people in a nice way.
Yeah, for the betterment
Yeah,
of
for
things.
the emperor, guys.
Yeah.
Just remember. I mean, I'm pretty sure he wasn't as Mister Rogers as I am right now, but
Right.
in the Angels of Death show, much more imposing.
Mhm.
I like the chaplain character, so I
Mhm.
agree with you. I think the chaplain and Terminator armor model was probably my favorite. It was good to see the scouts make a return and to
I
get rid
like
of
those.
those
Mhm.
old terrible models with the faces when they look really surprised.
They look too short for their faces. It's
They
just
did.
really weird.
They were like Votan height with
Yeah.
Space Marine size heads, which is
It's
really looking weird. I mean, what'd you think of these things, the scouts in particular?
Oh, I like them. I think I'll probably eventually maybe pick some of those up. I don't know how they'll play, but I think they look cool.
Yeah.
But man, if you were, say, like you're a Raven Wing player or something like that,
Mhm.
um, is that not Raven Wing, Raven Guard? Sorry,
I know what you
some
meant.
yeah. um, I think if you had a chapter like that, I think those would be really cool just to throw in there. Um, I don't know, they're probably not going to be just powerhouses,
No.
because there's
But you
just too many
need
choices now. But
yeah, and you need something still to take objectives. I think
mhm,
what a lot of, especially new players, for any new players listening, don't just go for the super big dog ones that do all the damage, because you need some, just like when you play chess, you need your pawns
that's right,
to go out and do the little things that allow your characters and your big tanks and all that kind of stuff to sit back and do what they came to do. So but one thing I did like about the scouts is that they showed a lot of different options,
uh
and
huh,
I'm usually not one for tons and tons of customizations, because whenever I see that, I just think, oh gosh, there's so many things to clip out and glue and different stuff to paint. But again, I play for the game, not necessarily for the painting.
right,
But they have a nice little tiled picture set on the website showing lots of. I mean, you can do these big crazy missile launcher things. You can go with the sniper rifles. They've got the cloaks on their backs. All kinds of really cool options for anyone looking to run a scout unit. I'm guessing that you'll be able to put these into a kill team as well. They seem
oh, that's a great,
very,
yeah.
very kill team ish, or combat patrol, set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those guys will be a lot of fun to look at. I like the jump pack Marines too. Um,
Hmm.
they're nothing. They're not that like, woo, look how new those are. Um, because I really do like those assault intercessor squads. I mean, I think those were some of the coolest models. Um, the ones that first came out were in the Indomitus box, and they were the monopose, but they
Right.
were some of the best posed Space Marines that were out there for a while. A lot of people kit bashed them into regular intercessors and stuff. So
Hmm.
really, these are just assault intercessors with jump packs. So the problem with assault intercessors for me right now is they're really, really good objective holders. They're fantastic in melee, but you just can't get them there fast enough.
Right.
They don't move any faster than regular. So this might actually help them. Now, the model is not that like groundbreaking. They literally looks like they just put the jump packs on them, but it'll be cool to see those on the board. I'm interested to see how people use them.
Yeah, I think I guess the downside and the positive with Space Marines is that you get you kind of know what you're getting.
Hmm.
There's not a ton that you can do with a armored Marine. I mean, you're
Yep.
gonna have to either take his helmet off to show variety, and
Yeah, that's right.
I like to do that. I like to have somebody without a helmet just to mix it up a little bit. And yes, I know that's not realistic. You're not going to go out to battle with your helmet off, but give me a break. This is also in the 41st millennium with spaceships and just okay,
Yeah.
just go with it. Um, I like that. But the jump packs. I remember when I first started playing Warhammer, the biggest hurdle for me with a Space Marine army was knowing the difference between different types of Space Marines because they all just looked the
Yes.
same, and you get used to it. You know
Hmm.
who's carrying what and the subtleties of each model. It gets a little better, but I'm with you though. I wish they had I don't know what they would do.
I don't
Could they
know
give
either.
them some mechanical wings or something crazy? I don't know.
I think that would be cool. Yeah. Um, I don't know. It's like watching the original Star Wars, the original trilogy, and all the really bad costumes and stuff. But you watch even the newest ones with all the available technology and all that stuff.
Hmm.
Bravo to them. They still kept true to the aesthetic and the style, even though it was really bad and really derpy.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? And it's
yeah.
just kind of like, oh, you could have. Did you really need a Tupperware bowl for a helmet? I mean, come on, man. But you kind of have to. It's either that or you wipe the slate clean, and that just doesn't work either.
No,
You don't
they
want to
not at this
start from
point.
square zero. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, they can't do that now. And I again, I don't mind the Space Marines. They just don't wow me or get me super duper excited
hmm,
about new models because it's just more of the same. Terminators may be the exception, and Scouts, but
hmm,
that's not what is probably going to be. Terminators obviously are really good, but the Stern Guard, with the Company
yeah,
of Heroes, I like the big banners. That's cool, but
very.
in general, I thought Space Marines are always going to be a safe type
Hmm.
play. Um, if they had added maybe some new kind of vehicle, or
That would have been
because
fun.
even though they are some new turret guns
Hmm.
or even some new terrain or something to spice it up, I thought
Hmm.
that would have been cool. But either way, Space Marine players, I'm sure will be really happy to have some new models, new units to play that will be, and along with the detachments and the codex should add some good flavor and get the Space Marine players started in the right direction.
Hmm.
Well, let's move now to our next reveal coming from Nova. Um, and it was one that I didn't know that I'm not a Warcry player, but I was really, really excited about the release. It just looked so awesome.
Yeah.
And I usually when it comes to something that's not 40K or Age of Sigmar, if it's one of the boxed games or something, I'll just, turn the volume down, I'll mute it, and I'll go back to doing something else while I wait for them to get to the next announcement. But in this case, they release this box called Warcry Hunter and Hunted, and these models looked really cool. One is the Rangers of the Wilder Core Hunters versus the Maw Pack of Gorgers, and
Hmm.
so it's I guess I'm not a ogre player in Age of Sigmar, but I've always considered it. So anytime I see ogres, I start to get kind of excited, and these look like spooky zombie ogres almost. And
Yes.
with the hunters thing, it's got me looking down at my Oktoberfest and
Hmm.
thinking about Halloween, and I just thought this box set was going to be is really appropriate for the season coming up. But just the models looked cool. And Steve, I know that you're a fan of Warcry.
Yes.
What was your take on this box?
Well, I do. I'm intrigued by the ogres. I think that's kind of interesting. But now intrigue could turn into buying some models. I would never start. I would never start an army of them because
Yeah.
I'm just too new to it and kind of on a different path.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they look cool. And in the live stream they were talking about them. They can never get satiated. They're like always. These guys are always hungry.
They
So
look insane. I
they look
mean,
so horribly
so
gruesome.
mad and hungry and
Hmm.
absolutely crazy. Just the sculpts are just amazing.
And then when you got down to the ranger guys, Mick, you talking about Halloween. I think about the that '90s release of Bram Stoker's Dracula, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
remember how they were? It really was. It was a period piece, but not a period piece. Everything was
Mm-hmm.
kind of exaggerated, and I thought this is like every one of those kind of movies, and that Hansel and Gretel and those witch hunter movies, and
Yeah.
just sort of average everyday dudes that have just seen a few too many things, and and they got their dogs with them. I mean,
Yeah.
that is so awesome.
You got the doggos in there are always
Yeah.
going to get, I think I don't know why. I mean, I'm not necessarily a dog lover. I had a dog a
Hmm.
long time ago. I don't have anything against dogs, just to be clear. I don't have anything
Yeah.
against
No, yeah.
dogs.
Yeah.
I think I'm allergic to a lot of pets. That's my primary reason. So cats and dogs, but um, I always like to see dogs are
Hmm.
just your companion, and when you're hunting, especially some of these. One of the models, however, has like an ogre head by his foot. I don't know if you saw that. Like it's one of the hunter models with a spear, and by his right foot, he's got a little ogre head just
I
kind of
see
hanging out.
with a face mask or
I'm like, what
whatever,
the
like
heck?
a leather bag or
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
but I like it because it adds to the I guess the menacing, or don't mess with these guys. They
Yeah.
really know what they're doing. This is what they do for a living. This is their
Hmm.
job.
And I like how they don't like to live in the city. They like to live in the woods. These dudes are sons of the soil.
Yeah, and I wish, that said, I'm looking at the picture and they've got the spooky trees in the background.
Hmm.
It would have been nice to have, but they've had some more cry terrain recently, so maybe they're just trying not to go too heavy into that. But the terrain that comes with this particular box is the I don't know what is this, a maw pit. I was
Mop
looking
it,
for the
yeah.
name, but because there is a maw pit that comes with the ogre maw tribes
Okay.
army, and because I've been eyeing it for a while and I got to stay focused on my current armies, so I can't. I've got tons of unpainted Tyranids in my
uh,
cabinet. I'm trying to finish up the Chaos Space Marines that I have, so I got plenty to do. But the maw pit looks like a Sarlacc pit
it looks
from
awesome.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of. But man, this looks super gross. It's
It's
just
and it
nasty.
would fit in wherever. I think you could plug this into any of your, you know, terrain schemes you have for AoS.
Any game, yeah. It doesn't even have to
Yeah,
be Warhammer. You could put this into really anything. I mean,
that's
D and
true.
D. You could put it
Hmm.
into whatever you wanted. Um, I'm very impressed with the Warcry releases. I continue to be, even though I've never played it.
Yeah.
But very impressive, and I'm excited to see this one. This is very much I thought a seasonal release
Hmm.
that should be good. I always like to see that during the Halloween season. So looking forward to this one, and would be a good deal. I think that the terrain is a bit of a miss. I think they should have added a little more,
Yeah.
but it might be okay depending on the price.
Yeah, the price will be the dictator for me. I mean, because I don't really have a lot of war bands for what Warcry stuff I have, so
Hmm.
this would be an okay addition. But I don't want to overpay for something like that.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't think they'll sell it separately.
Mm-mm.
It would be nice. I feel like an '80s commercial. You ask your parents to hook it up. This is sold separately.
That's right.
Everything was always sold separately in the '80s. It's just always talked about that in the commercials. But hopefully that this will be sold separately, because I think
Hmm.
I'll be getting into the ogre maw tribes. We'll see.
Cool.
All All right, let's hit some Age of Sigmar releases, and they talked about they showed off a new box for the Iron Jawz, which are the Age of Sigmar Orruks, not to be confused with Orcs, but
Mm,
Orruks, which is just a little confusing, I think. I mean, but they got to call them something else. It's fine.
that's right.
Um, and these are cool. I don't think that anything just crazy about these. But the one thing that every time I see an Orruk model from Age of Sigmar, and I look over at my 40k orcs, the first thought that comes to my head is like, man, they look like better versions
Mm-hmm.
of orcs. I like the models so much more. These particular ones are, the 40k orcs are more of the Mad Max riding around
Yeah.
in vehicles, and they just look like, going back to the ogre, um, the gorgers that we just saw with the Warcry stuff. The 40k orcs look just crazy. They
Right.
look insane. They're gonna throw, you know, the grots at you.
Mm-hmm.
They do the grot launchers and all that kind of stuff. They're just absolutely crazy. But the Orruks look less crazy, maybe a little more dumb,
Mm.
more barbaric, but in a deadly and overpowering type of way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they look really monstrous. Um, just very very bestial. They don't carry that comical well, except for the squig with the anvil on his head. Um,
Yeah.
but you gotta have some humor. But now these guys look really. Well, if these were coming to your village, you're like, man, let's get out of here because
Yeah.
what are you gonna do against this thing?
Yeah, and it reminds me of the one of the episodes on Warhammer Plus on Warhammer TV, where they have, I highly recommend it. So when I did a review of Warhammer Plus recently on our website. Go check that out. But one of the episodes of Hammer and Bolter had Orruks and some Stormcast in there, and it really got into the powerful nature of the Orruks, and
Mm-hmm.
also their, I would say, stupidity. They're just not they're just brutes. They're not real
Right,
smart,
right.
and they're more like cavemen.
Mm-hmm.
With crazy muscles and super powerful, and just tons and tons of hordes and models on the table, which is one of the reasons I liked them so much. But I like the Iron Jaws. I think the aesthetic is really cool. Um, I'm not an Oryx player because I have 40k Orcs, and so I thought, well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to really go over to that. I don't need to double up on my Orcs. But um, you know, talking about beasts and crazy and barbaric, they showed off a book for book two, the Reign of the Brute on the Dawnbringers with the Age
Yeah.
of Sigmar, and they showed off I'm gonna say that, what's it called, Trug, the Trogoth
Mm-hmm.
King. Did you see this thing? This thing
I
looks
did. It looks
super weird.
crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
what it is. I mean, I don't know enough about I don't know where it fits in with the whole AOS scheme of things. Uh it's just wacky, man.
yeah. I mean, it's like it's a troll looking ogre beast thing.
Mhm.
It's a Trogoth. I think that's how you say it.
Okay.
But it's got antlers, and then looks like it just
An
came out of the ground and
altar.
uprooted an altar. Yeah. Ah, man.
It
I don't know who comes up with this stuff.
I don't
It's
know
just
either.
amazing.
With a crazy snail shell hammer. I mean, how big is that snail or
That's a
crustacean?
big old snail.
Isn't
Yeah,
it?
for sure.
That looks wild, man.
Yeah, I think that this particular army is, you could probably ally with Oryx,
Mhm.
but what I liked about, they showed the picture, of this is the king leading a unit of Trogoths. I
Mhm.
guess that's what they're called. But the paint scheme is very similar to the Seraphon
Okay, yeah. I see what you're saying.
recently,
Mhm.
and I think that the way that they've done it, it pops really good. Scales in general, from a painting standpoint, I painted the trees within the official Games Workshop trees.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't painted trees or terrain or scales or anything like that, to me, it's one of the most satisfying things to do, especially for a new painter, because it doesn't require a ton of skill.
Mm-hmm.
You throw on a dark base coat, and then you hit it with a dry brush, and really, if you want to stop there, you can.
Right.
I mean, because it pops. You hit the ridges, and there's a lot of ridges because they're scales, and it's very easy to make it look cool very, very quickly. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's there's tons of extra details that you can add, but painting rocks in general, especially from a terrain standpoint, where I do that quite a bit, painting rocks is a cool way to get that quick satisfaction from your
Mm-hmm.
painting, because you can put that dark base coat and then do a couple of dry brushes. You start with a light, and then you go to maybe even a whiter almost top dry brush, and it really pops the skin tones and everything.
And the contrast paints and stuff now too.
Yeah.
You could go that route if you wanted to.
Yep. Yep.
Very fun. Same satisfaction. Really
Mm-hmm.
quick.
Yeah. So cool models. Not a Troggoth player necessarily, or an Orruk player, but it's always good to see the new stuff, new variety, and looking forward to seeing more Age of Sigmar, hopefully in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got three other releases that I'm going to bundle together in the last section here. And they're a little all over the place, but I want to start with a new release showing of the Horus Heresy. Not a game that I particularly play.
Right.
That just not my thing. Nothing against it. The models are cool. This one they showed was I think it's pronounced Dorado or Doradio, but I think I want to say Dorado.
Yeah.
But on the stream, I can't remember the guy's name, but he said Dorito,
He totally said
and
Dorito.
and I mean, I feel bad as someone who does a lot of presentations as to a large audience. Boy, when you make those types of mistakes, ugh, and
I
especially if
know.
it's recorded. But to make it worse, there's a chat stream going on, and so I mean, just imagine having that. The amount of Dorito emojis that were thrown into there,
Oh, jeez.
it was constant. I felt terrible for him, but what are you gonna do? You just got to keep going.
I would have to pay if I painted that. I would have to put Cool Ranch on it somewhere. Like, like his call sign would be Cool Ranch.
Yeah, or like a little like a chip tattoo of some
Yeah,
kind. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Well, regardless of the name, this thing's got a ton of guns on it and
Hmm.
missiles and craziness. I think it looks a little derpy. It's got like a little duck looking body to it.
Yeah,
The
or like
top
a
part
1950 speedboat or something.
it does. I didn't see the speedboat. It
Yeah.
looks like a little. If you were to lop off the legs, it looks like a little mini speedboat
With a head.
with a head. Ugh, man.
Just so you
Or
can't.
like a James Bond,
Yes.
submarine thing that
Yes.
converts after he goes into the water. That's what it looks
Mm,
like.
it's just
And
not good.
no, I'm not a fan. But that's one of the reasons I haven't gotten into Horus Heresy, because a lot of those models have that kind of retro look to them, and
Hmm.
I think that's what they're going for, And I think it's one of those things where either you love it or you don't. So,
I do like that Mark III iron armor. That looks really, really cool.
mm-hmm.
And I think if you were, yeah, especially if you're my buddy Steve does Iron Warriors, and there's no doubt in my mind he's going to buy these guys because this is what they were left with.
Yeah,
So even in 40K, if you play a lot of chaos stuff, but you don't want to go straight up like Black Legion or the newer things,
mm-hmm.
but you could do something like this and do Iron Warriors, or I mean, I guess if you wanted to, you could do a firstborn like Iron Hands type army, but it's going to be hard with the scale because he has some, and I've seen them, and they are smaller. They're between the little bitty firstborn 40K Marines and the new Primaris, so
Really.
they're right in between. So it's kind of an odd sort of odd scale. It looks right. It looks okay.
Hmm.
And they look better than those older, 7th edition Firstborn Marines.
Well, I guess they've got to keep it a little different because otherwise
Hmm.
people are just going to repurpose and not buy the new model. So they
Right.
are a company that wants
Hmm.
to sell you more stuff. That's the goal. And but I like the color scheme. The color scheme is really cool. The
Yeah.
green really pops, I think. And I agree with you. I like the armor on the actual troops.
Yeah.
Just looking at the picture they have with the tank and all the troops out there, and then they got the little mini boat off to the right. It just looks a little weird.
It
To me,
looks,
it's a miss to me.
yeah, it's like the Small World boat at Disney.
Yeah, very
And
much. Well, I won't. I probably won't be buying the Dorito
no,
Dreadnought,
the Dorito
but
Dreadnought.
it does make me hungry for some Doritos, so I might have to get some after this. So let's now skip over to some Warhammer Old World. I continue to be intrigued by the Old World
I
models,
know.
and this is starting to sneak up on me a little bit. They're slowly rolling it out. I'm sure they've got a long time to go before they start to come out with an actual game or anything. But I like how they're doing the releases, and this one is the I don't know. I'm gonna butcher
No.
the name.
Yeah,
Is
I
it
hear you.
Elise Duchaard? I think maybe.
Something like that. We'll go with
Yeah,
that.
close enough. Whatever. It's a female character in a flowing white dress holding a
Hmm.
chalice on a unicorn. I mean, this
Yep.
thing screams to me old school fantasy, which in all the right ways, I think.
And it's cool because it looks as if there's gonna be options, or is it? Or no, no. This is the old. These are the older versions. I'm so sorry. I
No,
wonder.
yeah, they showed that they're
Hmm.
comparing what it used to look like,
Yeah,
and boy, they've come a long way.
they came a long, long way,
Yeah,
and it's gonna be interesting. So, this is completely outside of what AOS or 40K is presenting aesthetically right now.
yeah.
There's this is about as nice, dare I say that? I mean, nice or pure, or
Pure is probably the right word. Yeah,
that there's nothing like this in the rest of it. So it makes me wonder what the rest of the game is going to really, really be like. Is this going to be almost have a little more historical feel that we as you know 21st century people can actually put our finger on? Like
yeah,
it would be more well, minus a unicorn and probably a magic chalice and etc. But it's very, it's very Lord of the Rings and Tolkien and
yeah.
all that.
I is it Galadriel? I guess is
Yeah,
probably
that's a great one. Yes.
the best way to look at this. But there's a lot of pops of color on there with the flowers around the neck of the unicorn,
Hmm.
and I agree. Pure is probably the best word for it. But I there's nothing else like this. The is a good palette cleanser because
Hmm.
the old Warhammer was a little more colorful. If you've seen any of the old White Dwarf magazines where they have the green hills and everything
Hmm.
just has tons more color, and this is a good mix. I think it's not it's a little more Lord of the Rings, as you said. It could fit into any fantasy game, to be honest. But I like the model more for what I hope to see in additional units that they release for this game.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping it is a direction that it's a good palate cleanser from the grim dark future and all the craziness that we just saw these ogres that are just disgusting.
Hmm.
And then you have this purity symbol. Um, it's a good contrast. So if you're coming out with uh, something that is very menacing and crazy and bloodthirsty, and then you're going against this other force, the only thing I'll throw in there is that every time I go into a Games Workshop store and I ask them, who the good guys are. Remember when I first
Yep.
started doing this, and there's no good guys or good ladies.
Uh,
How can this not be obvious? A good force, a good army. That's the only thing to me.
unless it's an illusion.
An
Uh,
illusion, yeah.
no, but I would take this model even if I never even played the game or even collected or anything. But something like
Mm-hmm.
that, I'd I'd buy that and paint it for my daughter, or
Yeah.
let her paint it, or something like that. Uh, just just to do something different, and I think that would be kind of neat.
Yeah, I think so. This is it. It could turn into, because you look at the Battle Sisters and 40K
Hmm.
and some of that very mature themes and
Right.
some of the female armies and the majority female armies, Adeptus Sororitas, and then you've got the other ones that are whips and chains and all kinds of stuff like that. It's a little over the top, but that's
Hmm.
the point. I think it's good to have something a little more simple, if they're looking to get a different vibe, especially with maybe some more noble and um, wisdom looking type female characters. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
So, with that, let's hit the very last bit of news, and this is more of just it was an aside. I was hoping for some kind of big mic drop type
Hmm.
moment, and they definitely delivered with the model. But this is the Primarch Fulgrim in a new release, and Steve, this one, uh, I don't really know what to think of this thing. This
Whew.
it's a giant serpent with wings, and I don't
Yeah.
really know all of the lore. Maybe you do better than I do, but this thing looks pretty cool.
It is a good looking model, and it's very, very true to the books that I've read, to what Fulcrum, transforms into this opulent, just really decadent demon prince. But in the current, I can't really remember is if he's still around, if he's not, or if he's just kind of checked out and just kind of living his opulent, lustful life or whatever
Yeah,
he's doing in the warp.
yeah,
Um, to my understanding, this is strictly 30K and Horus Heresy stuff.
yeah. That's what it says at the bottom of the article.
Yeah, and I don't, and I think a lot of folks are a little upset about that because they're slowly bringing these Primarchs and stuff back, and I'm not sure how they're gonna do it. I mean, you got the lion and all that, and we'll see. It does open the door. It makes sense that he might find his way back into 40K as far as the
Well,
game and stuff
no,
goes,
I mean
but
I'll stop you right there because there is a double asterisk next to the text at the bottom of the article, and it says, "Let's rip the plaster off now. No, this model
oh,
won't be
that's
getting rules
awesome.
for 40K." So yeah, and that's fine.
That's
Th-
fine.
you have to have models because if you're a Horus Heresy player and you're always thinking, man, every time we get a release, it's really for
Hmm.
40K and it's not for the game that I like to play. You got to cater to as many people as you can.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think it's great that no one game gets all of the best designs. You know, they really spread them out really well. I think, even though I just said that I wish that the 40K orcs had more of the
Hmm.
beast and crazy, really high level design that the Orruks have. I don't mind that there's a difference. That that there's really cool looking vehicles and um, bizarre creations on the 40K orcs versus the Orruks, who are a little more barbaric
Hmm.
and beasty looking. That's fine, right? There's a difference. There's a difference between the two. So I think this is another example of that. One thing I wanted to note on the model itself, if you look down at the bottom of it, it's got I guess they're skins, like
Yeah.
faces.
Faces, like filleted faces.
Gross. I
You
mean,
right?
there's somebody sits up late at night instead
Yeah.
of playing a game or something. They'd be like, what if I put flayed faces on the garments of a
Yeah.
model? That would be cool. And they're over
You
there
mean
like
like
drawing it.
beheaded heads? No, no, no. Just the
No,
faces.
faces.
No skulls. Just the faces.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
just
go
the
with it, man.
looks. Yeah, you do you, buddy.
But I will say that this is a painter's model.
For
Like
sure.
this isn't going to be your average, player that buys this model, put it on the tabletop.
No.
I dare say the majority of the people buying this are the display level kind of painters that want a challenging model to paint, and this is it. I mean, that would be I wouldn't even want to try to paint it, to be honest with you. I think
Yeah,
I would never feel
it's
done.
no, and it's got if you look at the scales
Hmm.
are different. Like individual scales are different colors, and I mean this
And
has got to be 100 hours.
and
I don't know even know.
the armor is amazing
Yeah,
too.
I mean
It's just too
so many
much.
colors. Yeah, to me, this is one where I would look at it and be like, wow, that's really cool. Have fun with that.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna try.
I'm not gonna go there. I'm gonna go back to spray painting my Tyranids and putting some contrast paint on.
That's like me hopping into a McLaren, supercar.
Yeah.
What am I gonna do with that except hurt myself?
Go down to Home Depot,
That's right.
get you a couple of bags of screws or
It's
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
just like this model, it's gonna end up in the ditch, man, because I'll never be able to make it
Yeah,
worth its
that's right.
potential.
Well, tons of cool stuff at Nova. I even though it may not have wowed us on every angle, that's okay. I think anytime we get to see new models, it's a good day. Good fun stuff to talk about. Looking forward to the next release. That will wrap our show for this episode of Bolters and Booze. Thank you again for listening. Thank you, Steve, for your time, attention, your service. Hope you enjoyed your commissar cocktail and feel very regal at this point
Yes,
while you
I feel.
shoot any deserters.
I see how the Votan feel, rather judgmental and
It's a good feeling. Yeah.
yeah, nice.
Well, appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And we will see you next time on Dad Hammer. Cheers, Steve.
Cheers, man.